Tonight's story is one that haunted my thoughts long after I heard it. It was shared by a man named Kit, whose family experienced something deeply disturbing over 50 years ago, an event that has become a terrifying legend among those who've heard it. Kit first wrote about this incident online, turning it into one of the most talked about ghost stories on the Thai forums. But tonight, you're hearing it straight from me. The story begins as a childhood memory of Kit's mother, back around 1972. Kit's mother came from a modest farming family living in a remote village far from town. Her parents, Kit's grandparents, had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Among them was Kit's mother and her younger sister, Yam. One day, seemingly without reason, Yam began acting strangely. She grew quiet, distant, and soon after, her condition rapidly deteriorated into something far darker. This wasn't a simple illness. It was as though something had invaded her very being, changing her into someone or something else. What happened next became a nightmare that the family would never forget, a nightmare that would echo through generations, whispered as a warning to others. This is the haunting tale of Aunt Yam, and how one innocent moment became the beginning of unspeakable dread in their family home. It started quietly, on a cool, misty morning in the remote countryside. Kit's mother and her 2 younger sisters, Yam and Yi, were walking the familiar shortcut through the dense forest toward their school. It was a path they'd taken countless times, a trail that wound through thick clusters of tamarind and towering trees. But that morning, something felt different. Yam, usually lively and talkative, was pale and feverish, shivering slightly as she walked. Her sisters noticed her condition but dismissed it as just a minor illness, something common in those cool months. As they continued, the dense forest grew eerily quiet, as though the usual hum of wildlife had vanished entirely. Then, they reached it, the enormous old tree that loomed over the trail, a giant whose roots twisted deep into the earth, dominating the entire area. Beneath its shadow stood an ancient spirit house, worn by time, covered in moss and vines. Normally, villagers would stop to pay respect, but today, something drew the girls' attention elsewhere. Standing silently beside the spirit house was a woman they'd never seen before. Dressed entirely in black, her face partially obscured, she stood completely still, eyes following their every movement. As they cautiously passed, Kit's mother raised her hands in a respectful gesture, but felt her heart pound heavily in her chest. The woman didn't speak. She just stood there, silent, an unsettling smile forming slowly on her lips. A chill ran down their spines. Yam, weakened and trembling, glanced back once more, locking eyes briefly with the mysterious stranger. None of them knew it then, but in that silent exchange, something had begun, something dark and terrifying, something that would change Yam and their lives forever. As evening fell, darkness crept over the family's isolated farmhouse, and Yam's condition took a worrying turn. Her fever rose sharply, and chills shook her frail body. The family, concerned, anxiously awaited the return of Yak, their eldest brother, who had a reputation for sensing trouble before it struck. Yak finally arrived, accompanied by Mahin, a respected local healer known for both medical knowledge and an intuitive sense of the supernatural. As Mahin stepped inside, his expression hardened immediately. Though he initially tried to downplay it, he couldn't hide his discomfort. Something was off. He quietly examined Yam, whose breathing had grown shallow and uneven. Mahin's eyes narrowed, whispering cautiously to Yak about dark energy lingering near Yam, something he had rarely encountered. He prescribed a traditional herbal remedy, attempting to reassure the anxious family, though doubt clouded his face. But just as Mahin prepared to leave, the tension in the house suddenly eased. Outside, silhouetted against the fading twilight, stood Chui, an elderly woman notorious in the village for practicing dark, forbidden rituals. She rarely left her home, living alone on the far side of the mountain. But tonight, inexplicably, Chewy had come to their house, her sunken eyes fixed intently on Yam through the open doorway. The family stood frozen, their blood running cold as Chewy stepped forward, a strange grin slowly spreading across her wrinkled face. Yam suddenly screamed, an animalistic, terrified shriek, as though something inside her had recognized Chewy. Mahan reacted instantly, moving to block Chewy's path and shouting at her to leave. His voice cracked with urgency and fear. Chewy didn't reply. Instead, her unsettling smile widened, her gaze locked firmly on Yam, before silently turning and disappearing into the darkness as suddenly as she'd appeared. Silence followed, heavy and fearful. Suspicion took root deep within the family, the unspoken dread now impossible to ignore. Something had found its way into their home, and it wasn't leaving anytime soon. As night deepened, the darkness that had taken hold of Yam began to reveal itself more vividly. The family, already unsettled by Chewy's strange appearance, felt a growing unease spread through their home. Sleep became restless, filled with anxious dreams and whispered prayers for safety. One night, Kit's mother woke abruptly, sensing something wasn't right. The house was unusually quiet, too quiet. Driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, she grabbed an oil lamp and slowly moved toward the kitchen, heart pounding with dread. As the faint, flickering glow illuminated the dim room, she stopped abruptly, horror freezing her in place. Yam was crouched on the floor, her back hunched unnaturally. Kit's mother gasped softly, her eyes widening in disbelief. Her gentle sister, now wild-eyed and feral, was greedily devouring raw chicken organs, blood smearing her face and hands, her mouth twisted into a grotesque grimace of hunger. "Yam!" she called out softly, her voice trembling with disbelief. Yam's head snapped around unnaturally fast, eyes gleaming with an unnatural hostility. She snarled, a sound more animal than human, causing Kit's mother to stumble back in fear. Days passed, and Yam's condition worsened. Her voice deepened, becoming harsh and aggressive. She lashed out verbally at family members with venomous words they never imagined she could speak. Her gentle nature twisted into something hateful and unfamiliar. The warmth of their home faded rapidly, replaced by fear and suspicion. The family began to dread each nightfall, wondering what new horror it would bring, terrified that whatever dark force had taken hold of Yam was only growing stronger. The night that terror fully took hold was etched permanently into the family's memory. With their grandparents away, responsibility fell to Yak, the eldest brother, a strong man known for his bravery. But even he couldn't protect them from the unseen threat lurking within their home. It began around midnight. Kit's mother stirred in her sleep, pulled awake by an unsettling whisper. The voice was soft, almost playful, yet carried an unmistakable malice, drifting through the shadows like a sinister lullaby. Her heart raced as she strained to understand the words, but they were foreign, indecipherable, chilling her to the bone. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate, pacing just outside the door. She lay frozen, breath shallow, as fear clawed at her throat. Summoning courage, she peeked from beneath the covers. Yam's bed was empty again. The silence shattered suddenly as a gunshot exploded into the night. Yak's voice boomed outside, furious and panicked. "Who are you? Get away from my sister," he shouted, his words trembling with rage and fear. More footsteps hurried now. Then another shot rang out, echoing ominously. Kit's mother bolted upright, trembling as chaos erupted through the house. Voices shouting, doors slamming, confusion mingled with cries of alarm. She stepped hesitantly toward the door, her legs barely holding her weight, the oil lamp shaking in her hand. The front door swung open violently as Yak burst inside, shotgun still clutched tightly, his eyes wild. "Stay inside," he commanded sharply, slamming the door behind him and locking it. "Something's out there, something evil." In the dim lamplight, Kit's mother glimpsed Yam standing silently in the corner of the room, eyes glittering with a dark, chilling amusement. Her lips curled slowly into a sinister smile, and in that moment, the family realized that the terror they feared wasn't just outside, it was already among them. The first light of dawn brought no relief, only a deeper dread. Yak knew their family was facing something beyond ordinary explanation. Driven by desperation, he sought help from Phut, a renowned spiritual healer known for battling dark spirits. When Phut arrived, his presence alone unsettled the household. His eyes, sharp and knowing, scanned each corner of the home as if sensing the invisible. Without hesitation, he approached Yam's room, his expression turning grave. The moment Phut stepped inside, Yam reacted violently, recoiling to the far corner of her bed. Her eyes narrowed, fixating on the healer with intense hatred. Phut stared back, unflinching, before whispering a grim truth. "This is no illness. An evil entity has taken hold of her." He led Yak and the family toward the dense bamboo grove behind the house, drawn by an overpowering stench. There, hidden among the tangled roots and leaves, they uncovered something truly horrifying. A rotting, viscous substance that dripped like corrupted honey, emitting a putrid odor that forced everyone to step back in revulsion. Phut's voice dropped low, shaking with urgency. This is the mark of a malevolent spirit. It's feeding from her life." Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed from the house. Rushing back inside, the family froze as they saw Yam standing rigidly, her eyes vacant yet disturbingly focused, a twisted smile spreading across her lips. In a chilling, unnatural voice, she declared, "I am not Yam anymore." The room filled with suffocating silence. With those words, the last sliver of hope shattered. The family now faced an unspeakable truth. The thing inside Yam had fully revealed itself, and it intended to stay. As twilight cast long shadows across the land, the family decided they had no choice but to seek medical help, desperate to escape the nightmare that had invaded their lives. Yam resisted violently, but finally subdued. They placed her in the back of the family truck, hoping to outrun the evil. But their journey quickly turned into another horrifying ordeal. As the truck wound down isolated country roads, a deep, oppressive darkness seemed to close in from all sides. Trees whispered ominously in the breeze, and every shadow felt alive, hiding something terrible. Soon, the family realized something impossible was happening. They were driving in circles, passing the same haunted landmarks again and again. Each loop brought them back to an eerie temple, silhouetted against the dying light, a place they knew they'd already passed. Panic surged as confusion turned to dread. And then, figures began to appear along the roadside, standing perfectly still. Silent women dressed in black, their faces hidden in shadow, watching as the truck slowly drove past. Each time, their numbers grew. Kit's mother clung desperately to the side of the truck, heart pounding, praying they'd somehow escape this relentless loop. But the silent figures never moved, just watched, their presence seeping fear into everyone aboard. Realizing they were trapped, Yak shouted for everyone to remain silent, warning that whatever was haunting them was feeding on their fear. Yet, each familiar landmark passed again, and again, the sense of doom grew heavier. Until, finally, without explanation, the looping stopped. They broke free onto the main road toward the hospital, shaken to their core. But the damage was already done. Everyone knew they'd crossed paths with something far darker than they'd ever imagined, and it was far from over. In the sterile quiet of the hospital room, Kit's mother stirred awake, an uneasy feeling gripping her chest. The soft hum of hospital lights filled the air, yet something felt terribly wrong. Turning slowly, Her heart froze in dread at the sight before her. Yam was awake, propped up stiffly in bed, her eyes wide open, glassy and empty, staring straight ahead. But even more disturbing was the small, black cat perched silently upon her chest, its eyes gleaming eerily in the dim hospital glow. The animal was motionless, like a statue carved from shadow, as though guarding some sinister secret. Kit's mother opened her mouth to call for help, but no sound emerged. Fear paralyzed her as Yam's lips began moving slowly, almost mechanically, forming words in a chilling, hollow voice. "I'm leaving now." With those cryptic words, Yam's body collapsed back onto the bed, limp and lifeless. A thin stream of blood trickled slowly from the corner of her mouth, staining the white sheets with a terrifying finality. And in that same moment, the black cat, as if released from a spell, gracefully leaped from her chest, silently padding toward the open window. With a final glance, it vanished into the darkness outside, leaving nothing but a lingering sense of dread behind. Kit's mother finally found her voice, screaming desperately for help. But deep down, she knew it was already too late. Yam's death was just the beginning of a lifetime haunted by unanswered questions for Kit's family. No one ever fully understood what truly happened. Was it possession, a sinister curse, or something darker still, lurking in the shadows of their village? The strange smiling woman near the old spirit house, the mysterious old woman Chui, and Yam's cryptic final words, all remain pieces of an unsolvable puzzle, forever etched in their memories. Decades have passed, yet no one can say for certain what evil claimed Yam's life. Perhaps some secrets are too dark, too terrible, meant only to remain whispered legends, buried deep in the silence of the past.